From Wall Street to Main Street, this is Lalate.
It's a big evening of Evenings LA with incredible great news about your stocks, your bonds, your crypto, and of course, your fourth stimulus check update of 2022. In tonight's recording for May 24th, 2022, we go over the latest developing details on the tech implosion brought down by Snap. Snap falling nearly 40% today on the stock announcement that its guidance on this economy on April 21st was off base. Why did a major tech company in its projections of this economy get it so wrong so quickly? Not done there yet, as the new housing data released minutes ago from what afternoon's LH show shows major slump of the housing market. Continue erosion? Yes. Then we turn to a new analyst's report in which he says if the recession is not brought upon by Jay Powell, then the raising interest rates will. And that report also says that if inflation is not fixed by Jay Powell, a crashing stock market will fix it as well. The gasoline prices going up as you go into Memorial Day weekend. All the latest details on that front. But the big news is that a fourth stimulus check is in every U.S. state. And over this big broadcast, stay to the very end, we're going to get that fourth stimulus check that is landed in every U.S. state. Step 1, subscribe. Step 2, become a member. And over this 1 hour broadcast, stay to the very end, I'll show you those big checks that I have found, upwards of $80,000 in every U.S. state. You want to get them, and they're in tonight's recording. Then we'll be turning back to the Build Back Better Act with those negotiations underway and what social media said about it in the last 2 hours. I'll have a shocker, and you are going to be surprised. Then we turn over to that SS300 from Jay Powell, that student loan debt forgiveness heating up this week with more debt potentially forgiven, the bear market, and why the downward swirl of this economy is happening more fast and more abruptly than initially projected, and the recession coming in 2 years? No, coming in January. And the housing market implosion happening tonight. Why is data moving so quickly? Why is this economy falling apart so fast? Of all the latest details tonight from the shores of Santa Monica, California, it's the most watched show for financial news in prime time. You found it, and it starts right now. It's Evenings Lalate. And good evening, everybody. Beautiful night for May 24th, 2022 from the shores of Santa Monica, California. Thank you for joining me on America's most watched show for financial news. Over this 1 hour broadcast, we're going to get you some big checks. We're going to give you some guidance on where this economy is going. And we're also going to tell you why analysts and statements from even the top CEOs like Bank America today were so out of bounds when talking about this economy and why the American consumer may have it right across the board. Stay to the very end because over this 1 hour broadcast, I have a lot of checks to get you. I have a lot of breaking news that happened the last hour since afternoon's LA, and a lot of projections about what's happening later this week as well. And with that, let's start with the breaking news as we start a big night. The Build Back Better Act negotiations back underway. Joe Manchin and Chuck Schumer. I reported this no less than 2 weeks ago, that the negotiations had resumed, but I did not say which cast of character members. Last week, and I said it was Chuck Schumer and Joe Manchin, and tonight, social media is all talking about these negotiations of the Build Back Better Act. What is the reaction? I'll get to that in a second. The Build Back Better Act would give you $15,000 to $80,000 of additional checks. But the great news is you don't have to wait for social media. You don't have to wait for that tweet or that Facebook post, because guess what? I got you a fourth stimulus check now in every U.S. state, and I'm going to show you how to get that check. It starts on this channel. It starts tonight. It comes up after the commercial break. Become a member, get that incredible newsletter Monday through Friday, and subscribe to this channel, and stay with me. With that fourth stimulus check coming up in every U.S. state, I'm going to go over it in just a second and show you how to get those massive sums of money tonight on evenings. When we turn back to the Build Back Better Act, it's supported by the bad economic data, and that bad economic data today got even more pronounced. when looking at this economy as a family, as a community of the Purple Power on this channel, what do? We try to figure out where this economy is going based upon the data at issue. And the data has really changed in the last 2 weeks. Have you seen it? It's no longer just the unemployment numbers. It's no longer just the PPI, the CPI. It's really what the corporation earnings reports are telling us, because that is when they get hit with a tsunami and they reveal to us they got it wrong. They can afford to get it right, but when they get it wrong, it means it's a lot more complicated. And let's look at what we learned tonight. Tonight, we had a major shocker that started before the stock market opened. The company, Snap, here from Los Angeles, a technology social media company. You may use it. It's an applications much like Facebook. And Snap plummeted before the Dow even opened, before the Nasdaq even opened. Why? Because they gave guidance about their earnings report, and they were down 28.8% before the market opened. When the market opened, Snap plummeted 40% of its valuation in one day. 40% of its valuation in one day, bringing down all the major social media tech stocks across the board, like Twitter down 3%, Google, Pinterest down 28%, Facebook down 10%, Roku down 18%. Why is this so important to you? Because they could not even project how fast this economy was falling apart. In the case of Snap, it's not like Target last week, where Target said, nothing. Target gave you no guidance all this year about how bad its corporate earnings reports was going to be when they announced it last week. In the case of Snap, they did tell you. Back on April 21st, Snap gave you guidance about how bad this economy is going. Now today, they revealed it got a lot worse, a lot faster. Here's what Snap said today in a new SEC filing obtained by LA News. Since we issued our guidance at Snap on April 21st, the macroeconomic environment has deteriorated faster and further than anticipated, meaning this economy is going to a hell in a hell basket faster than anyone could project, even at a very rich Snap organizations and employees across the board. This is really shocking news, and this is a day in which there was a lot of implosion across the board. I told you all this week we're looking to see what retail sales companies and their corporate earnings are telling us, because that will give us guidance on supply chain disruption. How bad is the supply chain disruption? We don't know until the corporations tell us and describe it to us with incredible detail. Abercrombie and Fitch down 40%, 30% today. Imagine 30% in one day for Abercrombie and Fitch as it reported an unexpected quarterly loss. AutoZone was a major beat, up $3 on the beat. It was expected to come in $26.05 a share. Earnings per share came in $29.03. And then Petco popped at 5% pre-market. Zoom rose 5% pre-market. They all had slight beats. But look, there was not much of a beat. There was not much of a zoom on those numbers. What's important to understand is that yesterday we had that fascinating quote from Maxwell, that analyst, and he said that in a recessionary environment, the devaluation plummets about 26%. We're already at that last week, he said. In a recessionary environment in which there's both a bear market and a recession, we go down 40%. So what's at issue is that we have not started the recession. We're just in a bear market. And today, Snap down 40%. Abercrombie & Fitch down 30% last week. Target down 40%. And we're not even starting the bear market. How bad could this be? Really bad. This is why the negotiations are back underway with Joe Manchin and Chuck Schumer to get a big payment out the door for that Build Back Better Act. The Build Back Better Act is a forced stimulus recon that started in the House, sent to the Senate. It was passed in the House last year, then stalled up in the Senate. 3 weeks ago, I was the first to report that the negotiations were back underway. Then I reported that the two individuals at issue are Joe Manchin and Chuck Schumer. Really good. Why? Number one, they both say they really like each other. Number two, they're very blunt individuals. Number three, they say they want to get this done right away and to you before the midterm elections and right now because you're hurting economically. Great. Why do I like these two team members negotiating? Because ultimately at issue, they are very blunt individuals. They are very blunt. The senator from New York, the senator from West Virginia, and they will tell you what they like and what they don't like. But here we go. Certain provisions in that Build Back Better Act will not survive, in my opinion. Certain provisions will not survive, and where's my opinion based upon the statements from Joe Manchin back in 2021? He told us emphatically certain provisions he will not do. So let's look at the Build Back Better Act provisions and which ones will survive and which ones won't. There's $15,000 to $80,000 of checks in that Build Back Better Act with 3 add-ons and 3 clusters. Let's look at that first add-on. $25,000 for the purchase of your first home. Would it survive? I believe it would. What about that $250 billion of free home health care for seniors and people on disabilities? Absolutely would not survive. Joe Manchin has said he will not do anything that would increase the expenditure of Medicare. He believes Medicare is broken and he does not want to spend any more Medicare money. What about those MSCs? $2,000 the first month, $1,000 thereafter for up to 6 months. Its potential to survive, but the amount may be different because it's an entirely different year. Then let's go to those individual clusters and see their prognosis based upon those Joe Manchin comments from 2021. Hazard pay for the earned income tax credit established under third stimulus would be extended. I believe it would. $4,000 of elder care. If it's not coming from Medicare, sure. $4,000 of care for young children, yes. The home repairs, certainly. The electric vehicle, $12,500. Yes, if it's not something that imputes something in energy that Joe Manchin is very particular about. Nutrition, of course. Then the CTC. I think it would survive, but I'm going to go over more about this later in this recording. It's a shocker. Stay to the very end where I go over the CTC, Joe Manchin, and that first cluster. Stay to the very end. It's a big shocker tonight. Just happened minutes ago. Cluster number 2, paid leave. Would it survive? Absolutely not. Joe Manchin said last year he would vote against the Build Back Better Act. If it's in there, it was out. Nancy Pelosi, Speaker of the House, put it in there. In spite of Joe Manchin, it's coming out. Nerd. The third cluster, free internet for all checks. Sure, that would say in there. Farmers checks, sure. Independent contractors, yes. But everything for seniors, absolutely falling out. On the noontime show, where I go over routing times for all these checks, I had a great question from Diane. She said, LA, what do you think about the lowering the eligibility age of Medicare? Would it survive? Nope, I don't think it's going to survive. Anything that increases the expenditure of money in the federal government on Medicare will not survive Joe Manchin. That means virtually every provision that Bernie Sanders and the progressives want in there would fall apart. First, dental coming out, vision coming out, hearing coming out. Also lowering the eligibility age of Medicare coming out. What about the Medicaid gap fix? This is a hard one because this one was crafted and designed by Joe Manchin himself and Raphael Warnock, the senator from Georgia, that would provide a workaround plan to uninsured people in 12 Republican holdout states. I believe it would survive. I believe that one would survive. And there you go. Those are the 30 classes and the 30 add-ons. When they hope to get this done? By Memorial Day weekend. Do they think they can get it to a vote? That's what they think. Do I think it's possible? It's insanely tight, folks. It's insanely tight. Here's what I need you to know is that I'm very happy to have these two people negotiating it. I think it's going to happen. But I really do think that the Build Back Better Act of 2022 will be different than the Build Back Better Act of 2021. That is why you need to get those 4 stimulus checks that are in every U.S. state that are coming up later in this recording. And I'm going to show you how those big 4 stimulus checks are astronomical. More than the average savings of U.S. households tonight. Yes, $80,000  4 stimulus checks? Oh, baby. They're coming up in just a second. Now, let's continue to why Build Back Better Act is supported across the board with the poor economic data that came in this week. In fact, the last few hours. What am I saying this week? It's tonight. It's just in the last few hours. Economic data hit left and right this day, and the data continue to roll throughout the afternoon into tonight's broadcast, which you're watching, with brand new data starting right now. The data involves the following. First, we have the Federal Reserve trying to battle those inflationary pressures and the interest rates. I'll be getting to that in a second. We have the oil problem and also the wheat and grain. But when we look at the Build Back Better issues tonight and the core issues of the economy, well, we have the earnings implosion of tech stocks really at issue. Snap caused that implosion of tech stocks today as major tech companies continue to fall apart. It was no less than 3 weeks ago that one analyst said that the bleeding of tech stocks is done. I called it incorrect at the time. And tonight I add a new feature to this channel. I'm going to invoke Ariana Grande. It's called Thank You Next. Thank you next. Every time we hear something totally ridiculous, we're going to say thank you next and move on. And that is what we heard 2 weeks ago, where one analyst said the tech bleeding is over. We're going to rebound from here. Thank you next, because tonight the tech bleeding continued as Snap imploded across the board. Next, We also had suggestions that the retail numbers would rebound. Thank you, Next, on that one, because the numbers today showed weakening across the board, even though Petco and Zoom surged up slightly. Now, let's go over the other data that came in the last few hours. First, we have the data that came in tonight on consumer spending. The comments came in from Bank of America CEO Brian Moynihan, who is over in Basel, Switzerland, at a fancy, cushy, glitzy financial conference. What did he say? The U.S. consumers are, quote, in good shape. Thank you, Next. And then he said spending will continue at an elevated level until the next term. Consumers are in good shape and they're not over leveraged. Thank you, Next. He went on to say that nothing is going to change, and he believes that the spending will still outpace more year to date. What's going to slow them down? Nothing right now, said Moynihan. Thank you, Next again. The Fed typically has very difficult things to deal with in the situation. Well, this... I gotta laugh because his quote is ridiculous. I mean, that's just ridiculous, isn't it? His quote mirrors the data that came in from the housing market minutes ago. I told you this last weekend. The housing starts, the housing sales number was coming in today, Tuesday afternoon. And here we go. Bad? Yeah, it was horrible. It was horrible. The data showed that the sales of new homes built dropped 17% from April from the month of March. It fell 17% compared to the month before. Excuse me? We were talking about stocks going down 21%. Oh, look at the beautiful backdrop I have for myself. I'm like on a green farm. Let's switch back to this. There we go. Yeah. Oh, it's the part of the housing video where he goes over the farmland. Yeah, the housing numbers were absolutely atrocious. So let's look at the year to date. Compared to the month of April 2021, the housing numbers fell 27%. Here's how one analyst said it so brilliantly. 2 days ago, the analyst asked the housing builders, what do you expect of our numbers? They said the demand's not there. The demand is there. It's just, we got to get the sellers in the door. The demand is there. We just got to get the sellers in the door. The reason why the sellers are not coming in the door is because the prices are too high. The supply chain disruption has driven up the price of lumber and people just not buying at these levels. While new construction sales gained with the prices, the market for new homes is mirroring the broader real estate trends. They're keeping people out of the market. They cannot buy because the prices have gone up too much and the mortgage rates have gone up as well. While new house constructions gained favor for would-be buyers over the past 2 years due to the extreme shortage, the rising cost of new homes is now pricing many people out of the market, said George Ratu, senior economist at Realtor.com. There we go. Great quote. And I got to tell you, this data tonight for the housing market is real-time data. So it's not delayed 3 months as I featured on Afternoons LA today. This is real life. This is real-time data. Wow. Shocker across the board. Now, let's go over to Jay Powell and a shocking quote that I got just minutes ago that again came in as Jay Powell is expected to speak later today. I haven't had his quotes yet. I'll have to feature them tomorrow morning on Mornings LA. Billionaire hedge fund manager Bill Ackman says that the Federal Reserve will have to get inflation down, and if the Federal Reserve doesn't get it down, the stock market will get it down by crashing. Whoa. If the Fed doesn't do its job, the market will do the Fed's job, and that's what's happening right now. The only way to stop raging inflation is with aggressive monetary policy or with collapse of the U.S. economy. Wow. What a shocking quote. He's basically saying if the Federal Reserve does not get those inflationary rates down by raising interest rates, then the way it's going to happen is with the U.S. economy collapsing itself. And that is what's happening tonight. 21% downturn for a bear market is what's supposed to happen. But now we're down already 21%, and some stocks, as you saw with Snap and Target in the last 7 days, are down 40%. When we have a recession coming next year, then we're down 40%. Another 20% down where we have to go from where we are tonight. And this is as a lot of analysts are really getting the heat for their incorrect data. The incorrect data is where it's going to leave a lot of people on the sideline wishing that they had never listened to that person. The data came less than 2 weeks ago when a major realtor was appearing on financial news and saying that there's a big demand for homes in New York with a condo selling at $3 million all cash with lots of buyers. When the analyst was asked, what about the mortgage rate surging from 3% to 5%? In less than a few months, will that turn away sellers? No, because they're paid all cash. Here's what the retailer, thank you, next, was not telling you. No one has $3 million cash in their bank account. They get that $3 million cash by selling out something they have, like their tech shares or their crypto. Tonight, they can't do that. Tonight, their Facebook stocks are down 20%. Their Snap is down 40%. Their Target shares are down 40%. You go over to crypto. Ethereum trying to stay above 1,900 can't. Bitcoin trying to stay over 30,000. It cannot. And to Cardano, 50 cents. Yeah, if suddenly you cannot sell out of your positions, stocks, bonds, or crypto, you're not going to do it. You're not going to raise that cash to buy the asset, and suddenly the glut starts. The glut of the housing market and the housing market collapse starts. And that is what's happening. Incorrect data, delayed data, and misstated data is what's hitting the housing market across the board tonight. Housing market collapse is already upon us. I already believe that the housing market is already in recession. But what about the rest of the U.S. economy? Back in February, yours truly, who has consistently got an economic prognosis correct on this channel, said we're going to recession for 2 years starting in January 2023. But I already believe that the housing industry and the auto industry are in recession tonight. Here's what you need to know and why that impacts your wallet. Come 90 days from now, you're going to see what I call on this channel a stimulus stampede. A stimulus stampede in which millions of Americans are going to be looking for checks, because guess what's going to happen? If all the analysts are correct, and they usually are, inflationary pressures will go up even higher. Gasoline will go up even higher. People will be laid off. They will not get unemployment assistance. They will not get small business assistance. They don't exist in any stimulus package anywhere anymore. And suddenly they're going to look for what I have for you tonight on this channel. A forced stimulus check in every U.S. state, and not a measly $600 that's not going to pay your bills for less than a week. I got upwards of $80,000 of forced stimulus checks in every U.S. state. They're coming up later in this recording. This is why you got to stay with me, because over this 1 hour broadcast, I'm going to go over these incredible checks and why it's important to get them by step 1, subscribing, step 2, becoming a member, and step 3, getting that newsletter. In the second half of this video, we're going to go over how to get these incredible checks and why you have to get them across the board. Is this market cheap or is this market imploding? That is a very confusing analysis, which I'm going to go over right now. Is this economy just cheap, or is it actually going much worse? Carlyle Group's head, David Rubenstein, said minutes ago that the markets are reacting to the Federal Reserve's efforts to reduce inflation. Thank you, Next. Thank you, Next. It's absolutely incorrect. Rubenstein says that when you talked about the crashes of 1999, 2000, 2001, you had companies with no earnings that were in that tech bubble, and they imploded. Now you got companies with Netflix that has 250 million subscribers. Yes, it'll go down in valuation, but those companies are not going away. Well, that's sort of obvious analysis. He's not really telling us anything, Rubenstein. But here's what Rubenstein's really not making clear, is that the downward side and the downward spiral is far from over. Here we go. Here's that great quote from Julian Emanuel, head of equity and derivative quantitative strategy at Evercore this week. He says that when you have a bear market, which we have right now, you go down 21% for the valuation of your assets. And then if you have a bear market and recession, you go down 48%, which is what we had in 2000, 2008, and 2020. We are only down 22%. But what do you say only down 22% when we're looking at Target down 50% in one day? Abercrombie & Fitch down 30% just today. Snap down 40% just today. What does this mean as we go out further? Yeah, they're going to go down much further. They're going to go down considerably weaker. And that is why his analysis for Netflix is not correct, because Netflix could actually go to a very, very low valuation as a stock. And the bleeding is far from over. He thinks there's an inherent resistance level where the bottoming out of this market is about to be finished. No. We are going way down, way fast, and we are far from over. Consumer confidence is one of the items that no one can fix, and consumer spending is really what's at issue tonight. We had a series of CEOs in Davos, Switzerland. They're having a financial financial glitzy event there, where they all flew in with their private jets and they have these beautiful lunches without lobster sauce. And they talk about stuff that's just all thank you next. What started today? It started today with the head of Marriott telling on broadcast media that the demand to pay 200% more for a hotel and 200% more for airline travel than a year ago is at full capacity. Good. What he didn't tell you is that when the consumer sentiment turns the other way, they will not be spending. The consumer sentiment could change in a minute, in a blink of an eye, and that started last week when 81% polled by a new financial channel said they believe we're going to recession by the end of the year. Imagine if you watch financial news and you tell a pollster, I believe we're going to recession later this year. Do you think you're going to spend your money like it's living on a tree? Of course not. You're going to be conscientious of your money. So you're not going to keep on spending 200% on a hotel that you would have spent. You're not going to spend $400 on a hotel that you spent $200 on last year or the year before. That's just silliness. And so that's a big thank you next for the head of Marriott. When we talk about Monahan and says that the consumers are in good shape, thank you next. That's ridiculous. The consumer is not in good shape. In fact, we learned that from Walmart and Target. We learned that from Amazon. We learned that from Kohl's and Ross department stores last week. If the consumer was in such good shape, then they would have bought the products at the higher inflationary benchmark in those stores. They did not. If the consumer was in such good shape, then they would have bought the products when they were brought into the Ross department store too late, as the season ended and went from cold to warmer climates, and Ross department stores slashed the prices. They did not. Ross and Walmart also reported supply chain disruptions in the last 7 days, and they said in their corporate earnings that they had to slash the prices on the goods. The products came. Supply chain disruption with them is products coming late and then suddenly out of fashion, out of season, and suddenly they have to slash the prices. Did the consumer buy it then when it slashed dramatically? No. Consumer ain't buying stuff willy-nilly just because it's cheap. So the comments by Monahan are not what I am subscribing to. Thank you. Next. Let's go over to the next part of the equation, which is this scary prognosis that the bear market could be far more severe, that the price you're paying for those goods could be even more severe than right now. If you're going to the supermarket and you have now paid $5 for a gallon of milk when you used to pay $2.25, would you pay for that gallon of milk if it goes to $6? Post in the live chat right now, yes or no. If you're paying for $4 for a loaf of bread right now in the supermarket, would you pay for $5.50 for a loaf of bread? Post yes or no in the live chat right now. My guess is you're going to say no. And that is where Monahan is out of touch. There's one thing to say the consumer's in good spirits. There's another one to say the consumer has so much discretionary spending to just spend it willy-nilly. Here's what's at issue. A lot of analysts, when looking at those corporate earnings reports the last 7 days, said that it looks like these corporations are set to pass the cost of the supply chain disruption to you this quarter because they cannot absorb the higher price of gasoline, shipping, and transportation costs. Yeah, that they're going to raise those prices for you. Consumers in great, let's run that quote again. Consumers in good spirit, in good shape. In good shape? Who's in good shape that's paying for the price of milk right now at these levels? Who's in good shape going into Memorial Day weekend, about to pay $5.45 for a price of gasoline in domestic average AAA unleaded? Who's in good shape? Consumers are in good shape and their spending is at an elevated clip. Really? Untrue. Untrue. Thank you, next. And that is why the housing numbers dropped dramatically, down 27% year to date. They're in good shape to buy a home that's reasonably priced with a reasonably priced mortgage. But when the mortgage rate jumps from 3 to 5%, they're not in a good shape. The good shape, however, is here. The good shape here is with you and I. Why? Because I have searched high and low since the month of March to get you 4 stimulus checks, and I have them for you. And as a consumer, as a viewer, you are in better shape than the average viewer who doesn't watch this channel, than the average non-viewer who doesn't watch this channel. Because why? I've been telling you since the month of February, you have to get these 4 stimulus checks. They are in every U.S. state, and in March, I found them for you. Let's take it back a notch of how we got here. In March, when you and I were looking at the Build Back Better Act negotiations, or lack of them, we said, we're starting to hurt. This inflationary environment's really starting to hurt me. The gasoline, the milk, the bread. Do you have some checks, Lalate? No, Build Back Better Act's not a law yet. Sorry, I don't. Can you find some? And I found them. When it comes finding stimulus checks, it's a needle in a haystack job, but it's also an art form, and I'm the Picasso of that art form. This is what I've been doing since day one if you just found this channel. This channel launched in March of 2020 when millions of Americans were sent on a lockdown, closing their doors, about to lose their business, losing their jobs, about to lose their homes, going into lockdown and about to lose their car due to car payments. You needed help, and I stepped forward and I helped them get you EIDL grants, $10,000, EIDL loans, $150,000, PUA, FPUC, UI for unemployment assistance up to $20,000, $30,000, then PPP over $100,000, LWA later that year. I stepped forward, I showed you how to get that money. This is where we are right now, but it hasn't hit as hard as March 2020 yet. My predictions in 90 days from now, the tsunami of stimulus, the stimulus tsunami, or the tsunami of demand for stimulus will hit. And millions of Americans will start to lose their jobs as corporate America, big box retailers will say, you know what, I'm just not selling the products. I don't need you in the stores. There's too many of you employees. 5 of you can stay home, though I'll keep 1 of you. The rest you can call it a day, are going to get unemployed. And then they're going to say, LA, do you have some PUA or UI for me? I don't. Businesses may go under as mom and pop because suddenly the demand for consumers to spend won't be there if the price escalation continues to grow. We learned that in the housing numbers. No one's going to pay these numbers if they continue to grow. And if the small mom and pop businesses cannot absorb the higher price of costs, they will need stimulus. EIDL, do you have it for me, LA? No, I don't. That is why in March of this year, I looked high and low and I found you 4 stimulus checks. 4 stimulus checks in every U.S. state for you. If you're single, if you're married, if you have children, if you don't have children, if you're retired, if you're not retired, if you work, if you don't work, if you're on benefits, if you're not on benefits, you've rent and own, I got you a 4 stimulus check. How do you do it? It's coming up after this commercial break. Here's a series of steps. Step 1, go to the top of this channel and subscribe now, right now. Subscribe right now. You have found the only channel like this in the U.S. landscape of broadcast media, where I cover where this economy is, where this economy is going, and how to get big sums of money. Step 2, join the channel. Become a member. Purple Hawk, Purple Power, or Calcino VIP. And step 3, stay with me after the commercial break, because I'm going to show you how to then open that incredible membership newsletter Monday through Friday, 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and then get those incredible 4 stimulus checks in every U.S. state. Then I have a big surprise at the later in the video, and I have a reaction to what happened on social media today. You do not want to miss it. You rarely hear me talk this way, and you're going to hear me talk in a way you haven't seen in a long time. It's coming up after the commercial break. Become a member, and I'll see you back in 60 seconds. As America's most watched show for financial news goes into its second half and gets you those big checks, see you back in 60 seconds. As Evenings LA continues. If you want money right now, not 5 days from now, and not 5 weeks from now, then reach out to the community page. The volunteers can help you find that money for rent and utilities. That's at news.la.com/community. The community page features a series of volunteers who are viewers like you. They can help you find rent, utilities, SNAP, food benefits, mortgage assistance, and help you with eviction moratorium questions as well. Their Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram individuals reach out to them and indicate the city and state you're from, and they'll get back to you shortly. That's a community page. Volunteers working for you, viewers helping one another. Stay with LA for more. Join LA Daily for the excitement of the new LA live daily. The excitement starts on mornings LA at 9 a.m. Home LA returns at 11 a.m. daily. And then afternoons LA at 1 p.m. Join us daily as the excitement continues live from Santa Monica on LA Late. And with that, we start the second half of a big evenings LA from the shores of Santa Monica, California. Good evening. And hopefully during that commercial break, you became a member and subscribed. In the second half, we're going to go over those incredible 4 stimulus checks in every U.S. state. You need to get them because the stimulus stampede 90 days out will be severe. Millions of Americans will be looking for stimulus in about 90 days from now as this U.S. economy is falling dramatically across the board. Starting the day when Snap reported that in April, it thought it understood this economy, but its downward spiral has been so dramatic, so advanced, so pronounced, and so quick that even Snap could not even gauge how quickly this economy is imploding. We'll go over the latest details on that front in just a second. But first, in the second half of this video, we're going to go over those big 4 stimulus checks in every U.S. state. Are you ready? I'm ready. And let's go into the big breaking news tonight for an evening's Lalate second half. The details tonight is that a 4 stimulus check has landed in every U.S. state, and no one in the landscape of broadcast media tonight, anywhere, cares as much as I care. This started back on March 2020, when you were about to lose your home, about to lose your job, and potentially something even worse. And I stepped forward and showed people how to get the EIDL grant and EIDL loan and PPP and FPUC. Then, in March of this year, it was much the same situation, but not severe yet. You needed stimulus. I heard your calls. You were waiting for a Build Back Better Act to get done. It was not getting done, and you need that money. And you said, LA, can you find me some money? And that's what I did. It takes hours of research finding these checks, and I found them. They came by executive order. They came by executive order in March. And those 4 stimulus checks are now in every U.S. state. We're going to go over each of those incredible checks starting right now. Let's remember that these 4 stimulus checks are for you. I use a lettering system on this channel called A, B, and C. What's important for you to understand is that you're not going to see these checks anywhere else in the landscape of American broadcasting at all tonight, except right here. Let's go with that first check starting right now. Are you ready? I am. It is Check A. Check A is a $6,500 to $12,000 for stimulus check. Who gets it? You can. If you make $75,000 or less, single individual, married couple, $150,000 or less. It is also for people on benefits. If you're on SSI, SSDI, veterans benefits, you can go get it as well. It is called the Homeowner's Grant Check. $6,500 to $12,000, a whopping sum of money. How do you get that check? Step 1, subscribe to this channel. Step 2, become a member. Step 3, go into that membership newsletter down to Check A. That newsletter is delivered Monday through Friday, 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time via the YouTube alert system. And then when you see Check A in the newsletter, go apply. You are ready to rock and roll, and you are ready to get that money. Let's go then to Check B, because you're not done there yet. You're now going to go get a Check B as well. Check B is a $15,000 to $80,000 for stimulus check. Single individual, $75,000 less, go get it. Married couple, $150,000 less, go get it. And if you're on benefits, go get it. You are not seeing a typographical error. This is $15,000 to $80,000 fourth stimulus checks. I don't mess around here. I just don't mess around here. I'm not here to get you a $600 check. $600 checks landing in bank accounts and mailboxes, and then you use it one day and it's gone. No. I am here to get you monster checks. A new report that was released late last week said that the average consumer savings in the U.S. bank account has dropped 15% in 1 year, from over $75,000 to less than $66,000. This is as consumer savings is dwindling very quickly. Guess what? This Check B is more than the average savings of U.S. households. Go get it. So how do you get this incredible Check B? It is averaging $66,000 to $80,000. It is very similar to Check A. Step 1, it is $6,500. It is a $15,000 to $80,000. Step 1, subscribe to this channel. Step 2, become a member. Go into the video where it says join and join a member right tonight. Purple Hawk, Purple Power, or Calcino VIP. Then get that incredible newsletter Monday through Friday, 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time via the YouTube alert system. Go right down in that membership newsletter, past Check A, till you find, there it is, Check B, and apply. In the case of Check A, you're applying online. In the case of Check B, you're applying online. The links are all in the membership newsletter. As one viewer said, Carol, LA, you make this so simple. You put it all concise, organized. All the viewer has to do is just follow your instructions. Amen, Carol. Now, you're not going to stop there because you're going to go get a Check C. Check C is for my renters, yes. Check C is an MSC, $2,000, 12 months on average, direct deposit. It is the residue of third stimulus, originally called on this channel Purple. This is the money that I started getting people in December 2020 when there was no money left from the first stimulus. You needed money, and I got you money for rent, utilities, and mortgage assistance. Well, I taught you how to get it. You got it yourself. And then in December 2020, I said, this is going to become a law under third stimulus, but there's so much more money. Imagine how much money you're going to get. I said at the time you're going to get about $15,000. Well, guess what happened? The viewers from these Check Cs, then called third stimulus, got $45,000 on average. And guess what's happening now? They're still getting checks. Here's what they were doing on rent at the time, $20,000 to $30,000. What about utilities? Well, Mark's brother-in-law was at $15,000. What about SNAP? Mark's brother-in-law, $25,000 a year. Over 10 years, $250,000. Here's the combos. Nisi and Mark. Nisi, since this graphic from November of 2021, has been getting about $8,000 every few weeks. That's what she learns on this channel. That's what I teach on this channel. Keep on going back and getting sums of money. She's gotten $8,000 a few more times. Mark, he was at $32,000. Then he's at $166,000 tonight. What did Mark do? He heard my push and he went from $32,000 to $50,000. Then from $50,000 to $100,000. Then he got Check B. He went to $166,000. Lorraine, she was at $105,000. Now she's at $120,000. The success stories keep on coming in. How do you get that Check C? So simple. Step 1, subscribe to this channel. Step 2, become a member. Step 3, go write down that membership newsletter to Check C. And there it is. It tells you who to call, what to say, and how to say it. All detailed right there in that membership newsletter. So simple. So let's recap so you get this all under wraps and ready to rock and roll. A fourth stimulus check is landed in every U.S. state, and this fourth stimulus check is not done by Congress. It's done by executive order by Joseph Biden. The fourth stimulus check you're really only going to hear in this channel and this recordings on this channel because this is not something covered. It took an effort for me to find these checks for you, and as more checks are available, I'll feature them for you. They are Check A, Check B, and lots of Check Cs. Lots of them. Because in the case of Check Cs, I give you in the membership newsletter about 15 places to reach out to. Yes, you can get 15 checks. So you can keep on getting checks on top of these items. How do you get this incredible newsletter? Step 1, subscribe to this channel. Step 2, under the video where it says join this channel. Become a member. Purple Hawk, Purple Power, Calcino VIP. Notice all the people in the live chat with a purple emoji of a hawk behind their name. They are members. Step 3, get that newsletter. Now, there's a bell on the front of this channel. Make sure you hit that bell and set the notifications to all notifications. Then at 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 10 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, you'll get one of the many alerts from YouTube that says New LLA Post. It has the title, New LLA Post. Then below it, it says Newsletter. And then it says, click here to go to the post under a picture of a surfer. You click the link and you go right into the post, and there's the newsletter. There you go. Meantime, if you've had problems finding the newsletter, having questions about using the newsletter, send me a private message on Facebook. I'm here to help you. At Lalate News, send me a private message, and I have a self-help video that viewers say is very, very helpful in explaining to them how to get that incredible newsletter and use it so well. The negotiations for the Build Back Better Act would give you additional chapters on top of that, but the negotiations do not involve Bernie Sanders. They do not involve Joe Biden, and they do not involve Liz Warren. So what is going to be the fate of those negotiations? Well, I have a comment about that in a second based upon social media's activity today. It's a shocker. Stay with me. It's coming up later in this video. The great news is that we have a changing guard, a big movement in two fronts tonight as well. They are 7 stimulus and also 6 stimulus. Yeah, we haven't talked about 6 stimulus in a while. Stimulus packages on this channel are just numbered. They don't mean you do one before the other. I just try to keep them separated. I can call them apples and oranges. 6 stimulus is the one to battle Vladimir Putin's invasion of Ukraine. And as you go into the Memorial Day weekend, you're worried about the price of gasoline, aren't you? So here we go. We may have a solution for it. The European chief says today, March 24th, 2022, that a Russian oil embargo deal could be reached in the next few days. Finally. The holdout has, of course, been Hungary, Slovakia, and Czech Republic, which have been given basically waivers. So they do not have to be part of this deal because they're too dependent upon the Russian oil. European Commissioner President Ursula von der Leyen is confident in a new speech in Brussels that this is going to get done in the next few days, which would get 27 EU countries off of that Russian oil. Now, here we go with the oil. Let me tell you what to expect in the next 2 weeks, because it's not good. The price of gasoline, featured in the membership newsletter nightly, has two components. First, I feature the U.S. number, which is the AAA national average, which is going to be on all your broadcast media this week. As you go out for Memorial Day weekend, they're going to talk about the price of gasoline. $5.45, yeah, it's high. It's gone up a lot in just 1 week. It was $5.14 last week. The international price of Brent crude has not gone up. That is the price of gasoline internationally. It's hovering still at $1.12, which is very problematic. First, why is that hovering? It's hovering because that Chinese lockdown because of Omicron, that subvariant in China, has put that country on zero tolerance on lockdown in their homes. They are one of the major consumers of gasoline, and they are not consuming gasoline. When they come off of lockdown in early June, their consumption will kick in. They'll start driving their cars. They'll start consuming gas. That will increase consumption, and it'll increase, yes, shortage, which would increase price. Oh boy. My projection is that the price of gasoline at the pump will go up over $1 from where it is right now. $4.45, I believe it's going to go to $5.65. And the price of Brent crude international, I believe it's going to go from $1.12 to $1.20. And that is where we are on that front. Now, we have also big breaking news tonight about that student loan debt forgiveness. The president is reportedly set to forgive student loan debt forgiveness of $10,000. Many insiders believe, and that announcement could come within days. Let's recap. The president first forgave student loan debts for individuals who became disabled after graduation, went to work in the nonprofit or public sector after graduation, had their debts procured by fraud by the university against them. Then he took debts in default and put them in good standing, and if your debts were due in May, he rolled them over to September. Well, a new analyst report from a guy that is very well regarded, featured a lot on this channel, says that an announcement may be imminent, says Mark Kranowski, higher education expert. Biden's meeting with experts this week and policy makers to negotiate these elements to do loan forgiveness. What do you need to do if you are a student borrower of a federal loan? You need to go to the Department of Education's website, open its press releases, go in there and read every press release for the last 3 months from Miguel Cardona, because what Cardona is trying to do is change the statute's wordings so your debts are forgiven. Keywords to write down right now are IDR credit, public service loan, and income-based forgiveness. Those are keywords that often pop up in the landscape of these situations across the board. You know, this fascinating quote tonight, which is really a biggie, from Bill Ackman, that says, if Jay Powell does not get inflation down, the stock market will get it down by crashing. Let me tell you where this economy is going. Let me tell you tonight where the Build Back Better Act is going. The social media comments tonight and my reaction to them in a way in which you've never seen before on this channel in a long time. First, where is this economy going? This economy is going to get a lot of people burnt really badly. You know, it was a few weeks ago where I said there was only one thank you next. And tonight it feels like 80% of all quotes are thank you next. That they are just ridiculous quotes that are not based upon any logic. And sometimes when you look at the quote, you sort of think it's someone that has a reason to say it that way. When it was 3 weeks ago when that real estate broker said, oh, everyone's buying condos. Yeah, because you want them to buy the condo from you, right? Yeah. When it was 3 days ago when the home builder said, oh, we have a lot of demand. And then the reporter said, you have a lot of demand for that price point? No, we just have demand. So they're not buying. No, they're looking. There's demand, but they're just not. Yeah, a lot of thank you next. It seems like the growth of buffoonery comments is just kicking in. And I think this is because a lot of these companies have their own inherent interests at stake. When Target gave you no guidance last week about how bad its corporate earnings were going to be, and then it hit, that was par for the course of what we're really seeing tonight. When we see Snap, that really was good with us, giving us guidance in April, and then said, we gave you guidance in April, the data moved very dramatically since the month of April. That, I think, is really what's happening behind the scenes. Now, why is this so important for you to know? And what is my projections for you and what I recommend you to do? Number one, you got to get rid of all flexible interest-based instruments in the household. So if you have credit card debt, pay it off. If you have a flexible mortgage rate, get it to locked in as a fixed rate. Jay Powell will be raising half basis point increases in June, in July, in August are my projections. And by that time, by August comes around, I think the erosion of his confidence will really be pronounced. I think a lot of people think he has been all thank you next since last year. He said that inflation was going to be 2% in December. And I said in spring of last year, it was going to be 8% in December 2021. Then Jay Powell said it was going to be temporary, transitory, that spike of inflation in December. I said, no, it's not. It's going to stay at 8%. Thank you next, twice. The last 2 months, Jay Powell said, I'm going to get inflation down by raising interest rates. Last time the Federal Reserve did this, it didn't work. It sent the U.S. economy into recession. Thank you, next. And then Jay Powell is also saying that he's getting inflation down to 2% later this year. That is the all-time thank you, next. You ain't getting inflation down to 2%. You're lucky if you get inflation down to 4%, which is what I'm projecting. Many analysts are now worrying it may be coming in 8% later this year. What does that mean for your SS300? Joe Biden needs to make that swap from COLA to inflation. Joe Biden needs to do two things. One, he needs to forgive that student loan debt and just get on with it, because he looks very angry every time he gets a question about it. You don't want to do 50,000? We got it, Joe. Just do the 10,000 and move on. Take your victory lap and let's just move on. Then he needs to swap that COLA for inflation, because the household that's hurting the most tonight from the inflationary environment that's just here right now at 8%, before it goes to 12% inflationary environment, potentially, and before that recessionary winds start picking up later this fall on land, the households that are hurting the most are the households that are low income and people on beneficiaries. That is why Joe Biden needs to make that swap from COLA to inflation tonight. He put in his presidential platform of Joe Biden. How does this work? If that swap happened tonight and that inflation is 8% right tonight, then your benefits would go up $200 more per month next month. Not just next month, not just next year, but all this year and lifetime. Because once your benefits go up, they never go down. If inflation tracks at 4% later this year, then your benefits will go up another $100 thereafter. That's SS300. And that's why Joe Biden needs to make that swap right tonight, right now. And of course, do that student loan debt forgiveness. So we can go on to the next subject matter at issue. And the next subject matter at issue, of course, is my reaction tonight to those really strong word comments on Twitter hours ago about the child tax credit. The CTC is one of the provisions of the third stimulus, which gave $3,600 to children 17 years or younger. In fact, it was more money. It was $3,600 if you're a younger child, newborn all the way up. I think it was to 7, and then it was 7 to 17. It was $3,600 approximately, based upon if the household was a low-income household. Now, you see it's in the first cluster of the Build Back Better Act covered on this channel. It is only given to a household that has a child based upon the number of children in the household. So let's say it's a single mom. She makes $75,000 a year and she has 2 kids, ages 6 and 4. She get $3,600 times 2 twice per year. That's an annualized number. It's broken down on a monthly basis. It's a great provision. But here's what is issue, is that on Twitter, starting at about 11 a.m. today, that hashtag child tax credit started trending. I thought, why out of nowhere is this trending? Guess what? People are clearly watching this channel or somewhere, and they got wind that the negotiations are back underway with the Build Back Better Act. Immediately when people started hearing the negotiations are back underway with the Build Back Better Act, guess what happened? They started advocating for what they wanted to advocate for. And in this case, it was people advocating for the child tax credit. A series of legislators started making pitches that the child tax credit needs to get into the negotiations between Joe Manchin and Chuck Schumer and get done. And then also cited, some letter that was signed by 100 people. I mean, who cares 100 people? I mean, what is 100 people? Some letter signed by 100 people saying to Richard and Joe Manchin, please do the CTC. Here is my reaction to the child tax credit trending online today. Yes, children need help in this economy. Yes, uh, working families that are low income or and have children need help in this economy. But there is nothing in the landscape of the US economy that warrants that a child that is 80 months old deserves help and not an individual who's 80 years old. Why is a child who's 80 months old more important than an individual who's 80 years old? I don't know where this started or why it started. In any other universe, it would be called ageism, that we only give help to young people, we don't give help to older people. If a child was born in the time that we've been waiting for the Build Back Better Act to pass, in the last 18 months, then suddenly, according to this advocacy today on social media, that child deserves that $3,600, but not so much an 80-year-old who's watched the Build Back Better Act negotiated over the last year. That 80-year-old was 70, maybe 78 years old, maybe 79 years old when they started the negotiations of the Build Back Better Act start. And in the social media campaign for this today, people are leaving those elderly people by the wayside. Now, let's be frank, who they're also leaving by the wayside. They're leaving behind everyone else. When did a newborn child become more important than a family that is a low-income household that has no children? When did a newborn child become more important than a household that has someone on SSI, SSDI, Social Security, railroad benefits, veterans benefits, RB? When did a household that has a newborn child, when did that newborn child become more important than a veteran that served this country, is now a retiree on fixed benefits, on fixed income, and lives off of his Veterans Administration check? When did that 80-month-old child become more important than an 80-year-old veteran that served our country so well? I don't know. It just sounds so thank you, Max. It sounds so thank you, next. It is ridiculous that suddenly, in an environment in which we're supposed to be so correct, that suddenly we're really defaulting to really all I can call it is ageism. It's ageism. That people who are older should not get relief. That people who are young and crisp and new and fresh, like a new dollar bill, should be given all the benefits of the world, and everyone else should be left out to sea. It has to stop. It really has to stop. In the inflationary environment that we're in right now, before we have the recessionary environment, you know who's hurting. Low-income households and people on benefits. It's very simple. Low-income households and people on benefits. It's not just low-income households with children. It's low-income households. If the household makes $75,000 less, single individual, deserves a check. Married couple, $150,000 less, deserves a check. Why is it the household only gets a check if they have a child? It makes no sense. Again, this is the CTC. I'm not telling you this is the entire Build Back Better Act. If you're not up to date, let me remind you. The CTC is just one provision of the Build Back Better Act that is in there that was a continuation from third stimulus. Now, let me tell you what social media is saying. Social media is saying make it lifetime. Lifetime? Really? $3,600 a lifetime. I did this recording last year, and I haven't done it in over since Build Back Better Act started negotiating. $3,600 every year for 17 years. So we're going to give someone $4,000, a newborn child, every year for 18 years approximately. Excuse me? For that individual who defended our country and is now 60 years old. Over the next 18 years, that individual goes from 60 to 78. Is he going to get, or she going to get, $4,000 a year? Not under this advocacy. So for that person or persons who want to talk about little crisp young newborn children as the focal point of the U.S. Congress, you're forgetting a lot of other people. You're forgetting a lot of other people. And that's not the way this country is built upon. This country is not built upon forgetting one group of people in advance of another group of people. And I got to tell you, there's places in this Build Back Better Act that not there with the CTC, but elsewhere where it looks like that as well. I featured that a lot in 2021, where the $12,500 for the purchase of a new electric vehicle is in there, and it shouldn't be in there in many regards. Joe Biden put a provision in there that if you buy a car made by a U.S. onion manufacturer in a union shop on union soil, you get a $12,500. But if it's made by a U.S. shop on U.S. soil and is non-unionized, you don't get the check. Why? Why? And if you're spending $80,000 to buy a new electric Ford pickup truck, why do you need a $12,500 check? You already are able to afford, apparently, $80,000 truck. Why do you need a check to help the unions? We're not here just to help one group of people. This was all the talk of 2020, where we helped corporations and didn't help working Americans, where we helped corporations, didn't help low-income households. Now, the talk of social media in the last few hours is we're just going to help young people, and we're not going to help anyone of adult age. Why? Now, let's make this clear. Again, this is just an advocacy group. This is my reaction, but ultimately, advocate. Joe Biden needs to make that swap from COLA to inflation right tonight. Swap that COLA to inflation, get that $200 more per benefits in people's wallets right in 30 days from now. This is where things just sort of make it so obvious. Joe, make that phone call. You don't need to act to Congress. You don't need a Republican. You don't need a Democrat. All you need is a telephone. Pick up the phone and call that Social Security Administration head. Swap that COLA for inflation across the board. Tomorrow will feature more about what Jay Powell said tonight. I did not have his comments when this show aired. Meantime, we'll have the manufacturing numbers tomorrow and those big corporate earnings on Thursday, as Macy's and other corporate earnings come in later this week. Oh, that's Costco actually on Thursday as well. That's going to be a big one. But for now, get those 4 stimulus checks in every U.S. state. Those 4 stimulus checks in every U.S. state, and I want you to get them right tonight before the stimulus stampede comes on in. Step 1, subscribe to this channel. Step 2, become a member. Step 3, get that incredible newsletter Monday through Friday. And finally, make sure you watch all the videos throughout the day. As I've been saying over the last 3 days, the videos are changing very dramatically throughout the day. The content does not overlap. There's too much breaking news every single hour as the financial markets really implode. So do not miss the shows. We start sunrise at 3 and 3:30, then early mornings at 4 a.m., which was really well watched this morning. Thank you for watching that show. Mornings countdown at 7 a.m., live on air at 9 a.m. with Mornings LA. At noontime is 11 a.m., our check routing show. Then 1 o'clock afternoons, a brand new 3 o'clock afternoon show. And then we go into our evenings programming. 5 o'clock evenings LA, America's most watched show for financial news and prime time. 6 o'clock countdown, 7 o'clock stream stimulus, 8 o'clock extra, 9 o'clock sunset, and then we come into our overnight shows. With that, God bless. My spirit is to help everyone, and I hope Congress's spirit as well is to help everyone. Not one group of people, not to isolate one group, not to favor unions versus non-groups of people, not to favor families without children over families with children, not to favor young people over older people. My focus is to get help to everyone in need, because low-income households and people and beneficiaries are being hurt economically and financially by this inflationary environment. If the inflation environment gets worse, which it's all by projections will, they're going to be hurt even more. They need that assistance. You need the assistance across the board. If you're watching tonight for May 24th, please do yourself a favor. Subscribe and become a member and start getting these checks, because 90 days from now, the situation could be dramatically different. As Snap said today, on April 21st, we thought we understood this economy. Tonight, we learn we do not. It's changing very dramatically. From my home to your home, my thoughts and wishes are with you nightly. Stay informed, stay focused, and stay with Lalate for more.